The sound of fireworks should have meant celebration, but when Daniel Carter stepped off the bus with his duffel bag slung over his shoulder, every crack in the sky felt like gunfire. His hands trembled. His heart pounded. He had survived the war overseas, but he wasn't sure he could survive what waited for him at home. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of one simple sentence to change a life, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness. Your support spreads stories that matter. Daniel hadn't imagined his homecoming like this. No marching band, no cheering crowd, just a quiet suburban street lined with white fences and neatly trimmed lawns. The same street he had left 2 years ago, carrying promises to his 6-year-old daughter that Daddy would come back a hero. But heroes, he had learned, don't always return whole. Some come back with invisible fractures, silent storms behind their eyes. His daughter, Lily, waited on the porch steps of their small cream-colored house. Her brown curls bounced as she ran toward him, wrapping her thin arms around his waist. She had grown taller. Her voice sounded different. Time had moved forward without him, and he felt like a stranger stepping into his own life. He knelt down and held her tighter than he meant to, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo like it was oxygen. Being a single dad had been hard before the deployment. Now it felt impossible. Lily's mother had passed away when Lily was only 3. Daniel had learned to braid hair by watching online tutorials, to cook uneven pancakes on Sunday mornings, to pack school lunches with little notes that said, "Daddy loves you" to the moon. He had been mother and father both. And now he had to be strong again, even though inside he felt hollow. The nights were the worst. Sleep refused to stay. Memories of desert heat and distant explosions crept into the quiet of his bedroom. He would wake up gasping, heart racing, sweat soaking the sheets. Sometimes Lily would pad into his room, frightened by the sound of his restless movements. He hated the fear in her eyes when she looked at him like she didn't fully recognize the man sitting on the edge of the bed. Bills began stacking on the kitchen counter. The job he thought would be waiting for him had already been filled. Interviews came and went. Employers nodded politely at his military service but hesitated at the gaps in his resume. Daniel smiled through rejection emails and told Lily everything was fine, but he could see the worry forming in her small face when she thought he wasn't looking. Across the white picket fence lived Sarah Mitchell. She had moved in while Daniel was overseas. She was in her early 30s, with sunlit blonde hair she usually tied back in a loose ponytail, and a gentle smile that seemed to soften even the harshest afternoon light. Daniel had noticed her tending to her garden, watering bright red roses with careful attention. They had exchanged brief waves over the fence, nothing more. One afternoon, after another failed job interview, Daniel sat on his porch steps staring at the unopened mail in his hands. Lily was inside coloring quietly, unusually silent for a child her age. The weight of everything pressed down on him, the guilt of not being enough, the fear of failing his daughter, the quiet battle inside his own mind. That was when Sarah walked over. She didn't carry pity in her eyes. She didn't offer forced smiles or awkward gratitude for his service. She simply stood there, holding her garden gloves, and looked at him like she saw past the uniform he no longer wore. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the lawn, and for a moment, time felt suspended. She said one sentence that Daniel would replay in his mind for years to come. She told him that he didn't have to carry everything alone anymore. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't poetic, but it struck him deeper than any explosion he had heard overseas. For 2 years he had carried a rifle. For months after returning home, he had carried shame, fear, and pride that wouldn't let him ask for help. No one had told him it was okay to set the weight down. Sarah began small. She offered to watch Lily when Daniel had interviews. She dropped off homemade soup on nights when the house felt too quiet. She invited them both to join her for dinner on Sundays, creating a rhythm of warmth and laughter that slowly replaced the cold silence in Daniel's living room. But more than the meals, more than the babysitting, it was her steady presence that changed him. She listened without judgment when he spoke about the war. She didn't flinch at the pauses in his voice. She didn't rush him to move on. She simply sat beside him, sometimes in silence, reminding him that surviving didn't make him weak, it made him human. Lily began laughing again, real laughter, the kind that echoed down the hallway. She started drawing pictures that included 3 stick figures instead of 2. Daniel noticed the light returning to her eyes, and with it, a flicker of hope reignited inside him. He found a job at a local hardware store, not glamorous but steady. The owner, a retired veteran himself, recognized the quiet determination in Daniel's posture. Slowly, the bills stopped piling up. Slowly, the nightmares came less frequently. Healing didn't happen in one grand moment. It happened in small, ordinary days filled with kindness. One evening, as the sun dipped below the rooftops and painted the sky in shades of gold and lavender, Daniel stood by the fence watching Lily help Sarah plant new rose bushes. Dirt covered their hands. Laughter floated in the air. He realized something powerful: courage wasn't just found on battlefields. Sometimes it was found in allowing someone to care. Sarah's sentence had not erased his pain. It had not rewritten his past, but it had given him permission to live again. Before we reach the end, I want to ask you something special. Comment the word hope if you believe that one act of kindness can change a life. Months later, Daniel no longer felt like a stranger in his own home. The porch that once held his silent despair now held shared dinners and quiet conversations under string lights. Lily's drawings grew brighter. The house felt fuller, not because the war had disappeared, but because love had stepped in beside it. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that no one should fight their battles alone, please like, share, and leave a comment below. Your engagement helps spread messages of compassion to someone who might desperately need it today. Because sometimes, the bravest thing a wounded soldier can do is accept the hand reaching across the fence. And sometimes, all it takes to change everything is one simple sentence reminding us that we were never meant to carry the weight alone.